Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, the weather finally just warmed up, and yet, guess what we're going to be talking about today, Tony? Being cold at football games. I can't wait. That's enough spring and summer. Let's get back to cold, crappy weather.
Yeah, nothing else like it. Although night games in November means 4:30. Although with this with the time changes, that are those done now? Is the falling back officially over with now?
That sounds like tremendous information for us to have figured out that we wanted to talk about before the show, so I could look it up. But I can say with great authority, Tony, I don't know.
Good. That's the best part about the show. We don't pretend to know things we don't know. We only talk about the things we do know. And then also, if we don't know, we say, I'm not quite sure, but let's go ahead and talk about it anyway. So yes, 2 kickoff times were announced for Ohio State football on Monday. The first one, I would not have ever guessed that this would be the first game time we would get, which was Michigan State at Ohio State, November 11th for a 7:30 p.m. kick on NBC. I had already pre-written the story. We were told, hey, kickoff times are going to be coming out. So I just pre-wrote, hey, Michigan, Ohio State's going to be at 12 p.m. on Fox, And then this comes down to Michigan State things like I would have never, ever pre-written. You know what I think is going to happen? I'm thinking this is going to be an NBC Michigan State game. I better get this pre-written.
Yes. Before we get to the brilliance of putting a Mel Tucker Michigan State team on national TV in prime time, the Senate did, in March 2022, approve the Sunshine Protection Act by unanimous voice vote, which would have made the adoption of daylight saving time permanent and as of November 2023. However, that bill died in the U.S. House when the 117th Congress adjourned. Tony, these clowns in Washington, they want to keep us changing our clocks. That courtesy of Cleveland.com and the article I just Googled very quickly. So there you go.
It's Big Clock. I'm so sick of Big Clock and their lobbyists controlling everything. It's frustrating because I enjoy doing things until 8 p.m. at night. And now, once the fall hits, all I can do is work. And I don't enjoy working.
We all know. We've all seen it. We've all read your stuff. We know it's okay. So yes, maybe those clowns in Washington, am I right, can get this fixed at some point. Am I right? Anyway, so onto the clowns from East Lansing. Michigan State coming to Columbus, 7:30 in November on NBC. And I guess this is one of these things that I sort of knew. I mean, reading the TV deal, yes, the Big Ten's going to be in prime time. My big takeaway on this was I went back and I looked, because, there was always this rule, air quotes, with, you're not going to play at night in the Big Ten in November, except for when you do. And the exception we were always told was, well, if the visiting team is okay with it, then you can do it. But the stated reason was, safety at night and driving at night, and the weather can get bad in parts of Big Ten country. So it was really a safety thing that you didn't want to have those night games in Minnesota or Wisconsin or whatever in November. And now, Tony, the NBC has given the Big Ten so much money that now everyone's safe, so you can do it. So there you go. Problem solved.
Well, the key is you're driving home and everybody's driving home in limousines, and your chauffeur, those are professionals. They have CDL licenses, I believe. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be able to drive home late at night. Plus, they won't have been drinking like all of the fans in the stands now with alcohol sales. And so it'll be completely fine. And then, of course, the second game mentioned was Michigan, Ohio State. Ohio State, Michigan will kick off 12 p.m. on Fox, November 25th. But getting back to this night game thing, Jerry Emig, Ohio State SID, tweeted out on Monday, over the last 5 years, there have been 7 November night games. There were 3 in 2020. The season started late, so there are going to be there are some, I don't know if there's December night games, but we all know that things were a little bit different there. But the other 4 were all the first week of November, so I don't even really know that necessarily counts. It was the first Saturday in November, and so the week would have started in October. Maybe there's some sort of rule there. 2016, Nebraska at Ohio State was an 8:15 kick on November 5th. Again, first week in November. But now with this NBC contract, and it's not going to be necessarily every week this year, but I believe every week in 2024, there's going to be like a 7:30 p.m. kick, unless Notre Dame is at home playing a night game. But chances are that's going to be USC at Notre Dame, or something like that, where you'll still get a Big Ten game, but it obviously will be a Notre Dame game. But when Notre Dame has 2 or 3 night games at home, then we'll figure out what NBC is going to do at that point. I'm not sure how all of this is going to shake out, but so that's where things are. There's going to be a bunch of November night games. I do wonder, Tom, as we got these 2 games out, it looks to me like these were the first 2 picks, the first 2 weeks picked in the NBC, CBS, Fox draft, with the first pick perhaps on the second pick would be Michigan, Penn State would be the same week as this Michigan State game. So I'm thinking that it will be, I guess, Fox Big Noon Kickoff, which tells me then that Fox got the first 2 picks of the draft.
Yeah.
Which was that was rumored to have been possibly the case. It's so secretive about all of this crap, and some of the info is like disagrees with each other, and it's really annoying when you try to talk about this stuff and you hear different things and read different things from different sources. But yeah, so if that ends up being a Big Noon Kickoff, then that will say the Big Ten got the first 2 picks.
Yeah, that Fox got the first 2 picks. And the reason Fox would potentially be in line to get the first 2 picks is, of course, Fox owns 51% of 49%, I believe, of the Big Ten network. So Fox was actually in these negotiations on the other side of the table from CBS and NBC, because Fox owns a chunk of the Big Ten network and was kind of negotiating with the Big Ten. So it's kind of confusing. I had Matt Sars on the morning show about a week ago, and he explained it, but it's still, none of this is an exact science. It's, you kind of have an idea, and a lot of this was he's like getting told by people who follow this or who are involved in this stuff. He's getting told stuff, and, even he ends up, he's trying to put these projections together based on what he's hearing, and even some of those were, had changed in just a couple days after the initial thing came out. It turns out that the Penn State game week 1 was going to be a CBS game and not an NBC game, or vice versa. It's a mess. It's all very complicated, and this is one of these things where I'm glad someone else is there to do it and try and do the figure all this stuff out, because it's all just, it has always been complicated in the past. This year with new TV deals, and CBS still has 6, I think, SEC games on their schedule. It's a real mess. And
so initially, the Big Ten Network owned 51%. Then I think I read something where the pandemic has switched, like 51 to 40. And now Wikipedia tells us, and we know everything there is accurate, but right now Fox is a 61% owner of the Big Ten Network, with the Big Ten being 39%, which would seem to signify, yes, we are going to take the first 2 picks. Thank you very much. But that was kind of one of the things that went under the radar in terms of the stakeholdership just recently. So understandable that Fox would have those picks. I always say I'd like to be a fly on the wall when this draft is happening, but there is no actual draft. It's just like emails. Like there's no, we're going to sit down in a war room and do it. It's like emails. So I guess I would like to be CC'd on all of these emails, I guess.
I'm just picturing, that it's an actual draft, and there's Tony Petitti at the podium announcing all these picks. And, there's, Indiana, Michigan sitting there like Will Levis going, come on, someone pick us. Come on, no, come on. How about no? And yeah, it's the only free space on the bingo card is that Ohio State, Michigan that's going to be the first week picked every year. And Fox is going to have the first choice, and that game is always going to be on Fox. Everything else after that is kind of a little bit up in the air. I guess, if what you said was true, and Michigan is going to Penn State, and that's a noon kickoff and not a primetime whiteout kind of game, that's great news for Michigan. That's because, we were there last year for the Ohio State Penn State game at noon, and that is just, it's a different environment at noon than it is in prime time. It's just the students have less time to pregame. The atmosphere is, it's still loud, but it's not prime time loud. You have been in games at Ohio Stadium at noon and games in Ohio Stadium at night, and it is different. And that's just, you have the pyro, you have all that stuff at night. It just is a more intimidating atmosphere. So if Michigan has dodged that as Ohio State dodged it last year, that's, you wonder, is this going to sort of kill off the Penn State whiteout tradition? Because last year they had Minnesota. This year, I don't know who else they have coming.
I think it's Iowa.
Iowa? I mean, oh man. Boy, who wouldn't want to watch a Brian Ferentz offense try and operate in a hostile atmosphere in prime time? I'm sure that's going to be a very exciting game. You wonder if the TV deal is going to kind of kill off that as a truly, truly marquee game. It's still kind of a spectacle, but it's not, if it's Minnesota or it's Iowa, that is not Michigan and Ohio State.
It's going to be up to, for the whiteout game against Ohio State or Michigan, it's going to require bigger games that weekend, or just the luck of the way the draft and the schedule ends up, because that's generally going to be the marquee game, but NBC or CBS may be able to draft that week after, but even then, where does that rank in terms of Big Ten games? Is that number 2?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the year and depending on.
But once USC gets involved, then so I'm saying maybe it becomes number 3, depending on whatever. And then you can have it at night again. So does that happen every other year, or not every other year, like every other time? So once every 4 years, will Penn State get Ohio State or Michigan at home at night, or once every 5 or 6 years, depending on the way everything shakes out? So it will be interesting to see how this stuff goes once USC is involved. And I think we get the 2024 schedule around October.
Maybe. I'm assuming we'll get it around then, because the Big Ten does not wait that long to release it. That's much, much later than they would typically be doing it. I think that's right, because they're going to want to have that schedule out and then give the TV partners some time to figure it out before you have the actual draft. They still have not officially announced, here's exactly how we're doing the scheduling. It's going to be this many games, and you're going to have this many protected games, and you're going to have, I think there's a decent possibility when you get to 2024 and UCLA and USC are there. I think there's a decent possibility you're going to have a decent number of November primetime games out in California, which would only make sense, because then you're playing in a place where not only is that not late at night, but also it's not cold. And also you're not worried about, safe driving home and all that kind of stuff. It's that's sort of my assumption. I'm sure they can't do it exclusively with those games, but I would bet you're going to have, Ohio State travels out to USC in, on November 12th of 2024 or whatever, or Michigan does, or Penn State does, to kind of create that marquee game.
Yeah, I would think the last 3 Saturdays in November, just to be safe. You can get away with one, the first Saturday in November being a night game this way, because I think I saw somebody on Twitter post the temperature last year on November 11th was, in the 60s. So, it's generally not a blizzard or anything like that, or even snowing. But to be safe, have the last 3 games in LA, however you want to do it, USC, then UCLA, then USC, or whatever, and make the most of it. Anything else about the TV stuff, Tom?
No, I think we'll be interested. I'm guessing we'll get some more information on that soon. I was very surprised when they said 2 games are going to be announced. I told you it's going to be Michigan, Ohio State at noon, and it's going to be Ohio State at Notre Dame at 7:30 in week 3 or whatever on NBC, because that feels like Notre Dame wants to do that. I'm sure NBC wants to put that game in prime time. It's 2 of the 5 biggest brands in college football or thereabouts. I'm sure that's going to be a 7:30 NBC game. I don't know why they didn't announce it yet. That was kind of interesting to me, because that's one that's separate from the draft, because it's at Notre Dame. So NBC controls that automatically. So I was a little surprised that wasn't announced. I'm expecting we will hear something on that relatively soon.
The other games that weekend, in the Big Ten, Iowa at Penn State. And so we already know that schedule. So that means it has been drafted. Minnesota, Wisconsin at Purdue is a decent game. But, Iowa, Rutgers at Michigan, rivalry game there as well. So not the biggest week, but there's some sneaky stuff there that week. One last thing about the schedule. I was expecting to hear about Indiana, the season opener. When will that go? I will say the past few years, you have this initial announcement of games, and then for a day or two, and then 2 weeks later you'll get more. So if we don't hear anything today and we haven't been told that we're going to hear anything today, so don't be surprised if it's another couple weeks before you hear about a couple more the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, but yeah, that's going to be we'll know more soon, and that's you still have plenty of time to get your tailgate planned. You don't necessarily need to have the food booked down to the minute when you're going to pick it up, or when you're going to get the grill fired up for week 3 or week 7 or whatever it is. So you got a little more time, but it's always a good sign that, yes, the season is, in fact, sort of on its way. We were going to do today's show as a listener question show, and we have a few questions that we did not get to the last time we did this, and we have one that we're not going to get to this time because it's a really good, long, involved question that's going to probably turn into a multi-episode arc of this show. But I did want to start with the first one, Tony, from TJ and G. RJ Day throwing at camp as an 8th grader, legitimate quarterback prospect, or just a reason for Ryan Day to get closer to his recruiting targets than he usually would? We have seen RJ Day throw at Ohio State camp before. He plays, he will be a high school player this coming fall. And, much like Tony Alford having a son who played running back in high school, helped him get to a bunch of running back camps, Ryan Day has had access to, was it the one up in Massillon that Mark went to?
It was in Obetz last Sunday. I was there as well, not 2 Sundays ago. The UA Under Armour Next camp, ESPN Tom Luganbill was there as well. So, yeah, that's the one that he went to with like Ryan Montgomery, Bryce Underwood as some of the upperclassmen as 2025 guys. And so, yeah, RJ was there. He was throwing, had to, he only went about halfway, and then he had some ice on his shoulder by the end of the day. So, or on his elbow. So I don't know that, he just wasn't quite healthy for that, or tweaked something. So he didn't finish it out. But, at that age, when you're already, he's got his coaching, quarterback coach as his dad. I do wonder if he is also part of this quarterback culture where they all have their own coaches, their own position, quarterback coaches. There's several guys in Ohio that do this. So I do wonder, does Ryan Day turn his son over to another quarterback coach, that sort of thing, or do they work in the backyard?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Day obviously has the knowledge to do it. The question, I think, is during the season, how much time does Ryan Day have to be going out and watching film with his son and all of that kind of stuff? And I don't know the answer to that. As far as what kind of prospect RJ Day is, I mean, he's literally finishing up his 8th grade year, so it's a little ridiculous to try and project him to the college level right now, because he has not even gotten to the high school level right now. But, you look at quarterback prospects in general, and what are two things that are generally a good indication that someone has a chance to play at the college level. One is bloodlines, and his dad played quarterback at New Hampshire at the FCS level. He was not the prototype quarterback or anything like that, but he obviously has, the paternal side of his genetics include a former college football player and a former quarterback at the Division I level. So, okay, you can check that box. And then coaching and development. This is we talk about high school kids coming out of, coming up to the college level, and, it's a coach's kid, so he really understands the game and grinds film and works hard and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to guess that RJ today has an above average, both, in technique and also just in terms of understanding systems and understanding the offense. And you see RJ Day around the facility a decent amount. So it would not shock me if RJ Day was sitting in the back of the room sometimes watching the quarterback meetings or whatever, or just, I think I saw him hanging out with Kyle McCord or something during the spring game, or during some practices this spring. So, you have access to a bunch of really high-level quarterbacks to sort of pick their brains, in addition to having a dad who is considered one of the biggest quarterback gurus in the country. So, between the genetics and the access to training and, expertise and film study, and, I'm sure he can go, go work with Coach Mick if he wants to go work with Coach Mick a little bit, or go eat the team food or whatever. I think you have all of the pieces there for him potentially to be a college quarterback. But again, he's literally in middle school right now, so I don't think I want to put a specific star rating on him.
I even remember him coming to a post-game interview with JT Barrett, in 2017. Mm-hmm. Like, this is how long he's been around a lot of guys for a long time. Just to go way back when, 2017, about 15 years ago now is what it feels like.
Yeah, it is. Boy, yeah, you say that, and it's like 2017. That wasn't that long ago. And then you realize, okay, since then, JT Barrett, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, COVID, CJ Stroud. It has been a minute. Yeah, it feels like a while since Urban Meyer has been the head coach at Ohio State. Is I think my big takeaway there. Next one. From at RNRA91 question, hearing any rumblings about moving Donovan Jackson to left tackle and moving Fryer back to right tackle? That's something we have talked about in the past. I have not really heard a lot about that recently. I think that was, something we talked about in the advance of the spring, and they went through the whole spring and didn't really try it. So I think if that was something that was really part of the game plan, I think we would have seen that more during the spring. That they seemed perfectly content to have Donovan Jackson at left guard and Josh Fryer at left tackle. Now you've got Josh Simmons coming in from San Diego State. You still have Zen Mihalski. You still have Tager Shabola. I mean, my sense, Tony, is that you probably have an answer there on that roster that doesn't involve completely reshuffling things this summer and this fall if they didn't feel it was necessary to do it in the spring.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this question predates Josh Simmons committing or because we've been sitting on this for a little bit, but I think once that happened, then there's really not necessarily a need to move things around unless Josh Fryer just doesn't do well at left tackle. And then what do you do? Just at that point, you just switch Donovan Jackson and Josh Fryer, basically, assuming Josh Simmons is your right tackle. Like, if he comes in and beats out Tager Shabola and Zen Mihalski, but you're still having issues at left tackle, you're like, you know what, why don't you guys just switch places here? We'll see how this goes. But like we've said before, how long do you go into camp before you decide to do that? Like, fortunately, I think that's why they stuck with Josh Fryer all spring long, because you need as much information going into the fall as you can have in terms of, can Josh Fryer do this? And I don't think we didn't really hear the tone of concern aimed Josh Fryer's way. It was aimed on the other side.
Yeah, it felt like right tackle was more of a concern, that Josh Fryer, even if Josh Fryer is not Paris Johnson at left tackle, Josh Fryer should be solid at left tackle. They have had plenty of players over the years who have not been. Jamarco Jones at left tackle was a good, solid left tackle. He was not Paris Johnson. He was not Orlando Pace. They've had good left tackles that were not incredible left tackles over the years. And you don't need an absolutely impenetrable wall at left tackle. You just need a good, solid tackle. And you get the sense that they feel like Josh Fryer can be that. And then you just got to make sure you have a good, solid right tackle. And then you've got, then you're feeling pretty decent about life, because I think both guard spots they're feeling really good about. If you start shuffling Donovan Jackson around again, and again, I think they would have done more of that in the spring if they thought that was really a potential solution for this fall. Right now, if you're shuffling guys around and sliding Donovan Jackson out and Josh Fryer back in, I think you're just potentially opening up different concerns. It's as well. We've solved this one problem maybe, but also, have you made yourself better at left tackle, but not as good at left guard? Because Donovan Jackson is really, really solid at left guard. I think right now they're feeling very good about both guard spots. So, if you can solve that, if you can solve your tackle questions without having to screw with the guard positions, I think that's something they're going to want to do. All right, next one from @NabbyKankles4. We're going to have to do a little Philadelphia translation for you here. Why doesn't Columbus tax pizza slices for NIL for real, tax 5 cents a pizza slice, then collect for NIL and pay the football players? There is lots of Pizza Johns in Columbus. Tax pizza slices for NIL now. Johns, of course, JAWN. That is a Philadelphia slang for joints. I don't really understand. It's a city where their big culinary delight has Cheese Whiz on it. So just it's Philadelphia. Just shake your head and move on. But Tony, we have seen nonprofit NIL collectives. We have seen for-profit NIL collectives. I don't believe we've ever seen a governmental NIL collective. Is that something that we want to start diving into?
Well, I'm not sure that we haven't seen it, Tom. This idea of 5 cents a pizza, would you then have like people just buying a bunch of pizza and then just wasting it, trying to contribute? Because I'm not saying this happened with Rutgers, but did you, a couple months back, a month or so back, they found hundreds of pounds of pasta just thrown away in the woods. How do we know that this wasn't the first implementation, that 5 cent, pasta dish? Yeah, give me 400 pounds of pasta, and then what do you do with it? You waste it because you're not going to eat it all. You just throw it in the woods. So I don't want to be walking around the Columbus metro parks and find like 600 pizzas and be like, oh, that is so wasteful. You could have just given the money to a player for an NFT.
Throw the pizza on the roof of the whack, like in Breaking Bad. Yeah, it feels like that's this is probably not going to be something that they pursue. I mean, there's probably other ways to get money to people other than doing it as a governmental thing. But yeah, they are certainly getting creative in terms of exploring different pathways for NIL. So I guess never say never. But yes, I had not made the Rutgers NIL connection with the tons of pasta dumped in the woods in New Jersey. But yeah, I mean, wouldn't be the dumbest thing involved, affiliated with Rutgers football that we've seen over the years. So could be.
What about, Tom? What about this one? And to just not necessarily pizza slices, but 5 cents a beer in campus bars, on the off-campus bars. And instead of like calling it the foundation, you call it the Pound Nation. And every beer you pound, that's 5 cents that goes to the collective, the Pound Nation collective.
Which do you think you would raise more money on around Ohio State's campus, taxing slices of pizza or taxing beers? Because I think I'm leaning towards beer. Yeah,
well, now, is it just individual slices, or are you taxing, or is it 40 cents for like a full pie?
Well, he said tax 5 cents a pizza slice, which then if you're going to Donato's and getting the little rectangular slices, then you're paying a lot more than if you're going to like Fly Pie and getting the big floppy New York style slice.
And imagine the outrage of paying like $5 NIL tax for a Donato's pizza when you could get some, Brooklyn style one slice that is 3/4 of a Donato's pizza for 5 cents. That's like a grift. That's like, somebody in city council who has done something for you, and, greasing palms literally here, Tom, as we're talking it out.
Yeah. I'm also now with the beer thing, picturing people wobbling out of the varsity club. It's for the good of the team, man. I had to have the 17th one. Yeah,
gotta support the team.
Gotta support the team. Yes. Next one. Speaking of pizza, next one from @DonJohn1902. Any hungry huddle content for this off season? We've talked about it. We've talked about doing something around Columbus. We've talked about, we're going to Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days in a couple months. So, I don't know. Your question is, have we gotten our crap together enough to do some kind of a segment? And the answer, of course, is no.
Because Mark Givler and Kevin Noon are in the South right now, the collective South, and we do the Hungry Huddle with me, Tom, and Kevin. We should go do one now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, see...
So something like Korean barbecue, some place that he loves, or like a fondue place that is like favorite place on earth. It's like, oh yes, here we are.
But then that just sets them up to do something like at Cookout or something where I'll get so mad that they're there and I'm not there. So yeah, this feels like just a series of escalating video segments, and I don't know. I don't know that this may be one of those like War Games, the movie. The only way to win is not to play. Like it feels like this just otherwise turns into just an escalating series of dining segments. Final one from Lee Carvalho. What is your favorite fact that sounds made up but is 100% real? And Tony, do you have one you'd like to start with, or would you like me to go first here?
Well, I've got one that I read this one a little bit ago, and it angers me, and I'm never doing this again. Dusty Baker invented the high five.
There are different stories about the high five. There's a college basketball player that was credited with inventing the high five around that time. That's one of those things where it's like, I think it was a Syracuse player, but it's like, it's one of those things where, who invented the wave? And it's like, well, you'll get 10 different answers on who invented the wave. But yes, Dusty Baker, I know, is one of the people who has been credited with that. Yes.
So I'm never doing that again. Plus, I wonder if that's how he shot out Mark Pryor, his shoulder and elbow, and Kerry Wood. It's like the high five. He's like, look what I've done. I've invented this. And then he's just like destroying his pitcher's shoulders, like throwing them, constantly 8-9 innings. And then also good job every time they come off the mound. That's probably why. It's the number of innings plus the number of high fives.
Yeah, that's that's one of those things where it's remarkable how recent it is. You just sort of in your head assume if you're watching like a 1950s basketball game, they'll be high-fiving each other. And it's like, no, they're just wearing their socks really high and shaking hands on the court. And it's like, this doesn't look like anything modern right now. I did just have at one point while you were talking, I started thinking about how far back that was, and then started realizing that like 1943, the middle of World War II, was the same distance from 1983 as 2023 is from 1983, and then went, oh no, that's no, I don't care for that. Mine actually does come from the sort of late 80s. 1989, Pepsi, like the soda Pepsi, acquired 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer from the Soviet Union because the Pepsi had a deal where they were supplying Pepsi, like the syrup, to the Soviet Union, and there was a deal where they got to distribute Stolichnaya vodka as a result of that to sort of during the whole Glasnost period. And when the demand for Stoli dropped, they were getting paid in rubles, or tried to get paid in hard cash because rubles were not really exchangeable outside of the Soviet Union once the Soviet Union was collapsing. So the Soviet Union sold them a bunch of old warships, like old decommissioned warships, so that they could scrap them and then get hard currency that way. So they got 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer. So at one point, for this brief moment on paper, Pepsi had like the 6th largest navy in the world, which is incredible. I love that fact. That's one of those things where I heard that, and I'm like, that can't be right. And then you look it up, and it's like, oh my, yes, that is, in fact, it's one of those like technically true thing. It's not like there was like, whatever, Captain Pepsi, Admiral Pepsi, sailing the 7 seas or anything like that. But yes, Pepsi did at one point have like the 6th largest navy on Earth.
I was just doing a Google search on crazy facts, and I found some like 74 interesting facts from Cosmopolitan.com. So Cosmo, you'd be surprised to know that 3 of their 74 facts are about the Kardashians. So that to me is a surprising and unbelievable fact. Only 3 basically is the thing there.
I think the most surprising thing about the Kardashians is if you go back and watch the June 19th, 1994 documentary or whatever it was, that the like original series of E60 documentaries where it was like the day of the OJ chase. Robert Kardashian is in that. He's talking because he was like closely involved with that whole OJ case as all that stuff was breaking. And no one knew who anyone else of Robert Kardashian's family was. It was just Robert Kardashian. That's the only person you knew in that family. And Tony, that's the way we liked it.
We sure did back then. One of my favorites, I don't know, I shouldn't say favorites, but one of the more interesting ones comes from our old buddy, the late great Jim Davidson. and that is half of all people, or no, it's the average person has fewer than 2 arms.
That is true. Yes, I thought you were going to do the old George Carlin joke, like think about how stupid the average person is, and then by definition, half of the people are stupider than that. Yes, the average person does have fewer than 2 arms. That was a good one. That was one. We spent a lot of time in the car with Jim and Dan and everyone, and it was just every once in a while you'd be driving through whatever, the wheat fields of Illinois or whatever, and just hear something like that come out of the back seat, and it was like, yes, I suppose that is true. Yes. You
got any others?
No, that was the only one. I mean, the question specifically asked for my favorite. That is my favorite.
I also saw at Cosmo that the width of Australia is greater than the diameter of the moon.
That's 2 things I would not have thought to have compared.
Because and they use kilometers. I don't know what that means, but the diameter of the moon is like 2,100 miles, and so it'd be like driving from here to West Palm Beach and back, basically. And then boom, you've certainly not circumnavigated, but you've driven the diameter of the moon. If you could drive on the moon without, wrecking your rover.
I think my question would be, why are they using kilometers on the moon? Because whose moon is it, Tony?
That's America's moon.
Only one country has a flag up there, as far as I'm aware. So use miles like a person, not kilometers like some kind of a European animal.
That's true. We didn't fly to the moon, conquer the moon, these Europeans to go talking about kilometers on the moon. When you're on the moon, you speak American.
That's as far as I know, it's 100% of people who have been to the moon have spoken American, as far as I'm aware. There are some good ones about, and I have not looked this up, so I know like your phone in your pocket right now has more computing power than they had to get the entire Apollo space program to the moon and back, which, boy, feels like we're not necessarily making the most of the computing power that is currently in our pockets. If they're using it to get to the moon and back, and we're using it for whatever cat memes or something. So do better, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to conclude that segment.
Imagine if they had that kind of technology back then, and their Apollo 13 is in the air, and like the cat memes aren't loading, and they're like, Houston, we have a problem, our Wi-Fi is down. It's like, just what, focus on the task at hand. Enough with the videos, and just, you're astronauts, you're not local buffoons. All right.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I think they had a decent screening process to get people up into space, but
I don't know. Got a lot of Ohioans as astronauts. One other one in 1945. There's a chicken who lived for months without a head. I've heard that one before, and then I just saw this one pop up. Not on Cosmo. It's a different site. It's Glamour.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I already had this tab open, so it's just a coincidence that they had that fact on there.
All right, I think we should probably wrap the show up before you get to good housekeeping.
Oh, that's right there. Yeah, because just got 42 new uses for your Ottoman. So I've got to get back to that. Maybe we could do that as a bonus show. Anyway, I want to thank you all for joining us. Always feel free to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. Say hello to us there on the message board. Talk about what you do with your own Ottoman. And furniture and things like that, your Bluetooth and your recliner, stuff like that. Also find us at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Why wouldn't you? Go ahead and hit the bell to be notified. Give us a thumbs up here if you haven't already. So that will do it for today. And of course, find us on all of your podcast platforms of choice. Find us on Facebook as well. Just search Buckeye Huddle there, or facebook.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Go ahead and follow the page there as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.